Okay, so when I've been talking to everybody, um, almost everybody is having buyers right now. Especially if you're a first-time agent, it's a little tough to get. Well, no matter what market we're in, listings are king. You know, we always say that. It's tougher to get listings. It's easier to get buyers, and there's a few reasons for that. First, buyers know nothing usually about real estate because they're buyers, and usually they're first-time home buyers. So, hey, walk me through this stuff. That's what they want. When you have a seller, they've usually gone through this already because they bought the place. So sometimes that doesn't happen. I mean, they inherited the property, but by and large, they kind of know. So they've already established some relationships with that. And also a lot of times, if they're a seller, people have really reached out to them already. So usually when you're starting off, you're a little buyer heavy and seller light. And then eventually it'll start to turn, differently. Everybody's different. But because we have so many people working with buyers right now, and it is a seller's market, I thought let's focus on some buyer strategies that are real time that will help you guys. Because I get the fact that you can Google stuff, but when you Google stuff, it may be going back to 1992. And is it relevant today? Or it may be, oh, this is what we do in North Carolina. Well, that's special, but we don't do that here. There's all the things like what is really happening in our market. So it's like, okay, let's go over some of those things now. So first, when you have a buyer, you would really like to do a buyer consultation. And even preceding this, you may want to send out, like the buyer guide or something like that. But once you're working with a buyer, what does that mean? And by the way, it never hurts, even as you're having a conversation with a potential buyer, you tell them the things that you plan to do. People like to know that. Hey, what's your game plan? Buyers like to know, they know, or sometimes they know it's a tough market. So if you say, hey, I have some ways in which we can help with that. Okay, great. Now, sometimes I've heard agents say, oh, I have some strategies that will, really help you with that. Oh, okay, cool. What are your strategies? Oh, they're really cool. That tells me, yeah, you got nothing. So you kind of want to talk a little bit about it. Okay. People are smart, you guys are smart, and you guys can smell those things out. If somebody's got nothing. I had an agent years ago say, I have a 10-step process to make sure we sell your home for the most amount of money in the shortest amount of time. And I'm like, sure. So does every other agent, I mean, it sounds great. Okay. So you want to have a buyer's consultation and talk to your buyers about the actual market. What is going on right now? All the different factors. Even today, the Fed announced that they're doing interest rates again. Now, do interest rates directly affect mortgage rates? No, but they do indirectly affect it because that's at the amount which people can borrow money. That's at what they're putting out there as the interest rate for that. And many times it will eventually impact the mortgage rate market. But that's another thing, is that some people will say, oh, the Fed's just changed the interest rates. My mortgage rate's going to change tomorrow. No, it may not happen tomorrow, but it may trickle a little bit. It depends. But that's a conversation you have. That's the thing you let your buyers know. Hey, right now, this is where interest rates are at. And as I've sent things out to you guys, I know I've sent things out that have said, hey, by the way, in the big scheme of things, even though interest rates are higher than last year, they're still super cheap money. It's still cheap money compared to historical rates. And that's the thing to remember. The other thing to talk to them about is, don't forget, buying a home is a long-term play. It's not a short-term play. So it's not like you're putting money on a credit card and which credit card has the cheapest interest, and let me do that, or I'll wait until I get a better one. Well, waiting until you get the better interest, that's not a game to play. And besides, right now in a market the way we are now, if somebody is purchasing a property, then they're going to get the equity in it. They're also going to be making, and this is one conversation to have with buyers who are renting, you're no longer paying rent and that money goes out the window. You're literally putting money into a savings pot, which is the equity in your home. So let's say right now, and usually the many times it depends on how somebody rents, and if people are renting and then they buy something of an equitable amount. So let's say they're living in a 2-bedroom, 2-bath townhouse that they're renting, and now they want to buy a 2-bedroom, 2-bath townhouse. Probably it may be a little bit more, but the conversation to have is, well, right now, let's just talk averages. You're renting and it's costing you $2,800 a month for the rent. When you purchase, your payments may be $3,000, $3,200. Let's look at the numbers. However, for a comparable unit, but your rent's always going to go up. So 10 years from now, and this is when you can ask a question, 10 years from now, do you think your rent's still going to be $2,800? No, they raise it all the time. Exactly. However, once you get a mortgage, your mortgage payment stays the rate of that whole length of the mortgage, which if it's 30 years is 30 years. Do you think even in 20 years, your rent's going to go up? Yeah. In 20 years, your mortgage payment's going to stay the same. Oh, I never thought. And literally, I've had buyers say, I never thought of that. And then the other thing you say is, by the way, in 10 years from now, if you're paying rent somewhere, is the landlord going to give you that money back? No, I paid rent. Okay. If you purchase a place 10 years from now, if you sell it, do you think you're going to get your money back or even more? Well, yeah, because you're putting money into a place and you're building equity. And that allows you to have that financial conversation. And it's just those simple concepts will a lot of times with buyers go, oh, that makes sense. Because sometimes buyers will be like, well, why should I buy? My rent's this much and it's going to cost me even more to own a place. It's going to cost you more in the next month, but in the long term, it's going to cost you more to rent. And that's the thing you want them to focus on, because and then that's when you can even say, listen, I'm here to advise you. I'm here to help you. And I want to make sure that I tell you everything. And part of what I need to tell you is that 10 years from now, I don't want you regretting not purchasing something. So even though the interest rates may be a little bit higher than they were last year, you financially still end up as a huge winner by purchasing now. And if interest rates go up more, you really end up as a big winner. So that's the kind of conversation you can have with them. You can talk to them about how to compete. You let them know, look, right now it's a seller's market. So that means it's kind of a tough market out there. What does that mean? Well, that means anything that comes onto the market and is properly priced, you're having a ton of people look at it right here, right now. And you're going to have a number of offers. You even have some people that see a home is coming soon and they may be writing offers on that. Literally, I did that this past week for one of my buyers. They're like, Rob, we want to write an offer. Okay. I was like, I get it. Let's do it. Because we've already written 5 offers. And they kind of get like how it is. So I've talked about that, but the same buyers I'm talking to right now, I've let them know, listen, here's some other things you can do to compete. First, make sure, like, what if your proof of funds, you show a significant amount of proof of funds? That'll tell the seller you're a strong buyer, because if you're a strong buyer, you want to make sure that shows. Because the seller is going to look at that and go, well, wait, they're offering $800,000 and they're offering $820,000. But the people offering $800,000, they've got $200,000 in the bank. The people offering $820,000, it looks like they can barely skim on by. And so that, even at that point, sometimes sellers will go, no, I want to go with something that I know they're going to close, because knowing they'll close is what I want. It's wishful thinking maybe that the 820 is going to close. So that's a conversation you can have. That also leads to the next thing. Make sure that your buyers have all their ducks in a row. So that means they contact a lender, and if that's where you recommend the lender, great. And they get pre-approval letters. Now, one thing about pre-approval letters is that it depends on where as a listing agent, because I primarily am a listing agent, if I get a pre-approval letter and it's from, and I've gotten lenders from a ton of places, and I'm like, okay, no problem. And I'll call them and I'll verify and okay, good, we're good. If I see it's from one of the online, let's just do as many as we can, but the customer service is going to suck loans, like a Quicken Loans, or any of those places. I, as a listing agent, will tell my sellers that is a pain in the ass loan to work with, and it may not even fund, or it may not fund in time, or we may have these other issues, or they may be difficult to communicate with. And if all things are equal, we're not going to go with that offer. So that's a conversation I have with my buyers as well. Like, look, you are totally at will to get whoever you want. And if you need a recommendation, I have no problem recommending the lender to you. However, I will let you know that some lenders are going to be lenders you don't want to use. And I've had a buyer I've had to consult with it like that, because he thought, oh, look, I can get a better rate. So he went with this and he goes, hey, Rob, I got this pre-approval. I go, okay. And I had this whole conversation with him and he went, oh, okay, yeah, let's not use them. I go, no, because, and in those situations too, if you're dealing with like our in-house lender, Andy, when you call Andy, you'll get Andy or Chantal, and that's it. And they'll make sure you get handled. But you go with a Quicken Loans, you're a number, and it's whoever is working the lines right at that time. So it's not as easy to get that communication. And that does mean a lot in a transaction, and a good listing agent will know the difference. Next thing is proof of funds. And you want to make sure that they have their proof of funds, which is all their accounts, that can be used towards purchasing the home. Now, a few things with that. You want to redact account information. So that means you want to either black out, like let's say it's you have to print it, black it out, and then rescan it, do that. If you know how to do it electronically, which is normally how I do it, and I'll take out the numbers, I'll do that. So basically you're saying, hey, look, they've got $38,000 in their checking account, but we're not giving you the checking number. You're protecting your client too. And even let your client know that, because your client appreciates that. I'll say, by the way, I'm going to go ahead and, when you send over all your accounts, that's great, but I will redact your information. So when we send it over, that nobody gets your account numbers. So I do let them know that. Some things too, like let's say they send over a 401k. That's great. Some 401ks will limit how much you can withdraw. So then you want them to verify how much they can withdraw from that 401k. Now, I have my current buyers right now, like they probably have around, I'd have to add it up again. I think they have around $170,000 in their 401k. So I am not calling them, because even if they can only withdraw 50% of it, that's still way more than what we need. And by the way, they have a lot of money in their savings accounts too. But I do present it because it shows that we have a really strong offer. But let's say I had a client, the same one that tried to do the cheap, Quicken Loans sort of thing, say, oh, look, I've got 32,000 in my 401 account, so we can use that totally towards it. Oh, no, sunshine. Give them a call. Call them up and found out only $75,000 or 75% of it could be withdrawn to use towards purchasing the home. Because he was literally thinking, oh, I'm pre-qualified for 600,000, so therefore we can offer 632,000. No, you can't. And then you also have the conversation with that. By the way, with some of these funds, there's going to be closing costs as well. Now, it's not going to be extravagant, but it's usually, a certain percentage. Sometimes it could be 1%, 1.5%. It depends on the whole transaction, but just let them know. And usually, by the way, the lender, a good lender, will let them know what the closing costs would be for a certain amount. It's not your job to necessarily know that. It doesn't hurt to find out from the lender, by the way. And that's when you can say, I don't know how much the closing cost should be. No problem. I can call your lender if you want, and then I can find out. Or if you want to call your lender, that's fine. If you have a relationship with them, just let me know. But we would need to make sure that we have enough room in there for closing costs. So that's one of the other things. If the home needs a lot of tender loving care, and you see that, let them know, guys, look, you're going to pay for inspections, you're going to pay for closing costs, and if you want any of this stuff taken care of before you get in, you can't be house poor. You kind of have to make sure you have some of that padding in there too. Or let's say you have a family member that's going to donate and say, hey, we're going to gift you $10,000. Then you need to have that in writing at least, So that way that's part of your proof of funds. Any questions on that? Getting those part of the ducks in a row. Okay, now if you get to this point and they're like, no, I'd rather look at homes first. Okay, this is when you have that conversation again with your buyer. It's part of the consultation. And you say, listen, no seller is going to take any offer or consider it if you're not showing you can afford this place. So if you can't afford this place, then there's no use in me sending you homes. We need to have all these ducks in a row just so we can make an offer. Now, I have no problem maybe setting a list up for you so you can see what's out there while you're getting this stuff in order, but we can't make any offers out there without having this. And especially in this market, they're going to move on to somebody else. Nobody's going to wait. So that's a conversation to have. And then, like, okay, we need to do that, or they've done it either way. Then you can say, okay, now, what are some of the things you need in a home? And okay, well, what are some of the beds? How many beds? How many baths? Does it need to have a pool? Is it okay if it's a condo or a townhome? Is it okay if, does it have to be a single family residential? What kind of style home? Oh, you want a mid-century modern. Oh, you love the craftsman homes, that kind of stuff. All of that can matter. You want a lot of light in the home. You want a big backyard. You want, like, I live on a corner lot. I love living on a corner lot. So it's like, because you have less neighbors. And so it's like, no, and parking's easy. And so, it's like, no, we love corner lots, or we love cul-de-sacs. We love, not a straight through street. Any of those things could be like, oh, those are the things they're looking for. It's a turnkey home. Oh, it needs some help, that kind of stuff. Now, in that, if somebody says, well, we're really handy. So if it's a big fixer upper, that would be great. Okay. Little insight on that part. If it's a big fixer upper and it's on the market, yes, it'll be cheaper than what a turnkey home will be, but you're not going to get a huge discount in a market that's this low inventory, because people will still purchase the home. So if you have cabinets from 1978 and they look like they're from 1978, yeah, you won't get as much money for the home, but don't expect it to be like, wow, it's going to be just a huge fixer-upper price, because we're not in that market right now. And if a home is in that condition, a lot of agents, and I'm one of them, I have a ton of investors. If somebody gives me like, hey, Rob, we need you to sell our home. In fact, this happened to me 2 years ago, where, Rob, we need you to sell our home, and it's a major fixer, and it has all this work that needs to be done. Oh, actually, I did a few of those that same year. Now that I think of it. And so I sent it to my investors first, never even hit the market. I'm like, guys, I have this home that, it's going to be selling, but this is the condition that it's in, and it's perfect if you guys want to expand it, flip it, do all that kind of stuff, because that, is what needs to be done. Well, why am I doing that and not going to market? Tell me if you can think why. Okay, go ahead, Michael.
Is it less work to just put it on the market? You already have an investor lined up, proof of funds and everything.
A little bit, but that's not the main reason, but that's a good thought. Okay, if I list a home and I put it on the market, I'm getting the seller's agent commission, and then the buyer's agent gets a commission. Well, what if I'm representing both sides?
That's true.
Now I'm getting both sides of the commission. Now, I do tell my sellers, if that is the situation, I also drop a point. That's something a lot of agents do that, not all, but a lot of agents do that, because listen, obviously I don't need to be greedy, and this works out easier for everyone. And because of all that, I'm going to go ahead and drop a point. Also, I can only do that in a scenario where it is a fixer, or I should say, there's not a lot of negotiation. If I know the home is in, like basically the buyer's side is not going to be asking for repairs and blah, 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 I can represent both sides ethically, because I'm not having to negotiate with myself. But if it's a situation where I am negotiating with myself, I can't do that. There's no way I can really represent my sellers well and also on behalf of the buyers try and get what theirs due. You just can't do that, really. And in fact, 2 weeks ago, one of the agents in our office called me in for the same scenario because they have a home that's a major fixer. And this person came in unrepresented, and they're like, can you represent them? Because we can't represent them. There's no way, because there's going to be negotiations in this. So that's one of the things. That's another thing about investors, is that knowing you have an investor come in, they're going to strip it down to the bare studs anyway. And they may remodel and expand. So because of all that, they usually don't ask for repairs. They know going into it, that's part of the gig. They're going to upgrade everything anyway. So why are they going to ask for any credits? They're going to give you a lower price, of course, but part of the benefit to the seller is it's clean and easy. Nothing ever comes back to you, and we're done. And it's totally on your terms. In fact, and this is a benefit for a lot of times, you'll have some people that'll be hoarders in these situations. Don't worry about all the crap in the house, because we're going to have a huge trash bin and we're going to take it out anyway. So those are some of the ways in which I've represented both sides. So now I've got the seller's commission, which I would get anyway. Now I also have the buyer's commission. Oh, and one more thing, Sunshine. Then when the house gets turned around and ready to sell, most investors will use me to list it again. So now I'm getting that commission as well. Why am I telling you all this stuff? Well, because when you have a buyer that says, hey, we want a fixer, no problem, we'll look for them, but they're hard to find, especially in this market, and this is why. And you explain all that. And then because you're educating them, they get it. It's not going to be like, oh, well, I'm just going to wait until that special home comes around. You may be waiting a while because this other stuff is taking place as well. Does that make sense, how all that works?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Thank you, Rob.
Sure. Then you've had this conversation and they've told you what they want in a home. So I purposely put this as the next thing. Fine. Now go home and list on a sheet of paper your wants versus your needs. What are the things you absolutely have to have? And what are the things that are wants? And even prioritize them once you write them down. You can put them in order. I've mentioned this before, I know on this call. I had some clients a few years ago that they had wants versus needs. And I told them, we'd looked at a few homes and they were like, no, we know what we're looking for. And once they realized the market was kind of beating them up a little bit, and sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes you have to let them get, hey, this is the market we're in, and we've made a few offers and we've been beat every time. So we need to start, either keep at it or redo our game plan, and let's evaluate that. So that's what we did. One of their needs they realized was a want, and it was a close commute. Once they threw that out and said, okay, we're willing to commute, everything changed. That's when we went farther out there. We actually bought in Lake Elsinore. But once they changed that, they actually bought their forever home. They bought their dream home. They gave up that one thing, and that allowed them to see it. But people in their minds, and this is just human nature, people in their minds will say, oh, well, I love mid-century modern, and I love the original hardwood floors. Okay, those are wants. To be honest, those are wants. But we have to have two baths because we're both, we both work and we both get ready at the same time. Yeah, that's probably pretty much a need. That really is a need. Unless you can figure it out, that's kind of a need. Well, right now, she's, we're pregnant with twins, and we want at least, 3 bedrooms, or we blah, blah, blah. That's probably a need. You need that many bedrooms. We want a huge backyard with a pool. Okay. How much is the pool super necessary? Well, if you found the perfect home and it fit all the boxes, and sometimes this is a conversation to have, once they present you with that, would that be a deal breaker? And that's the question to ask. Is that a deal breaker? Is that something where you cannot foresee a way around that? And if they're like, yeah, it's a deal breaker, okay, then that's a need, and let's put that in order. But if it's something where, no, we can do without a pool, okay, fine, then that's fine. What if they were to say, well, you know what, it needs to have a 2-car garage? Okay, And what if it's the perfect home? Like, let's say the original in my area, all the homes were built 3 1s and 2 1s. And all the 2 1s only had a single car garage. That's the way they did it. But what if they built a 2 1 and now they've super expanded on, because we were all given large lots in my neighborhood. Yay. So they now have, 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, and a single car garage. Okay, we can deal with that. Okay. So that's the kind of thing that you help walk them through. And that's even when you tell them to put down the needs and wants, you give them examples, you give them why, because then it refines in their mind what is more important, and it walks them through that process. People, they're brand new to this. And so we all want different things, but what do you really need? When I bought my car a few years ago, I love my SUV. And I love the fact I can run over anything too, because I've gone over curbs on purpose. So, and it's fun, people. But when it comes to my previous car, had heated seats. Well, my current one doesn't have heated seats. And at times Jamal is like, oh, remember when we had heated seats? I'm like, yeah, that was kind of fun. It was a want. It's not a need. And it wasn't a deal breaker for what I currently have. What I currently have, we went with because we have the dogs. And when you're doing open houses or you're staging your listings, even, yeah, I'm hauling a ton of shit. And yes, I just swore and I don't care, but I'm hauling a ton of stuff. And it's like, I need that room. With the dogs, we need the room. We pack up and we go to Big Bear with 2 dogs. We have plenty of room for all of our stuff. So yay, the SUV, that fits all of our needs. Heated seats, not so much. Okay. If you're desperate to have them heated, eat a bean and cheese burrito and start farting. So that's the way to do it. And advise your buyers to look at properties that have been on the market for a while. And this is one of the strategies I use. And I've mentioned this before, that a home that closed in March this is the exact strategy we used. We had made 6 offers, I think 5 or 6 offers by this time. And we'd looked at a ton of homes, okay, also by this time. And they realized like, oh my God, Rob. And I mentioned this to them before, but I said, guys, when I'm sending you these lists, I'm going to resend you everything in the neighborhood. Because when you go in the MLS, you can relook up the stuff again and just send them a fresh list. And this will have everything in there. Look at homes that have been on the market for 20 days or more. Something's wrong with that home in this market. Something went wrong somewhere. It's priced too high. People realized it has an alley. People realized, oh, it needs a lot of work. There's something about it. It's in a great neighborhood, but you didn't realize that there's no street parking, whatever, there's something out there. So that's what my clients did. It actually ended up that they found this great home that had more acreage than any home that we had seen practically. The home itself, the sellers, they were 5 days from closing and the buyers canceled. They were like, nope, we're not signing final paperwork. The sellers had sold all their furniture. They had prepared to move. They had a baby and a 2-year-old, and they had 2 dogs. So they literally had a futon in the living room and air mattresses. And they were like, oh my God. And we caught them a few days after all of this went down and the home came back on the market. So when all of this had taken place, we talked to the listing agent, and I told the listing agent, look, I am so sorry that, you guys went through all that. This is what we're going to do. We will, and by this point, they even had appraisal, and the appraisal was 546. We will make our offer at appraisal. And I said, I will guarantee you this will be a super smooth and easy deal. And it was. I followed through with my word, and they got that house. And in fact, they asked for an extra 5 days after closing to move out, just to make sure there was padding. We closed on Friday, and Sunday, my clients got the keys. The seller said they were so great, we're going to even move out early for them. We can get this all done. But the strategy was, the strategy was, just a second, girls, hey, Milani, stop it. The strategy was, we went to a home that was on the market for a while, and therefore the sellers were easier to work with and more negotiable. And that may get an offer accepted because it's not fresh. People will sometimes only have a list and they look at the fresh and new homes. They won't look at the ones that came back on the market or have been on the market for a while. And by that time, the market has also beat up the sellers for whatever reason. And so that makes it easier because they have less offers coming in and all of a sudden yours stands out more. So that's a strategy you can go over with your buyers. And if anything, even if they don't go for one of those homes, it says, hey, you know what you're talking about. You know what's going on. And this is a way to address the market. So I wanted to talk about buyer strategies today. So then that way it kind of, it helps you, because I get the fact you're working with buyers, and this is what will help today in today's market. So I'm going to sign off right now, but I'm also going to, all this right here, obviously it's a document. So I'll send this with the email so you guys will get this as well. So it kind of gives you an outline when you actually sit down, what to do with your buyers. Any last questions?
No questions. Thank you so much, Rob.
Okay. Thanks for being here, guys.
All right, thank you so much.
Sure. And I will see you guys later.
All right, thank you.
Bye.